What's going on, Wolfpack? I'm back for episode 25 on a late Sunday evening, but I wanted to get you guys something before I head out of town this coming week. I'm going over to Dallas Wednesday morning to play in another one of those Warrior hockey tournaments with the guys here in Vegas. So it's going to be a lot of fun, but this will be good to edit while I'm on the plane and traveling and all that stuff. So wanted to get it recorded before I head out and give you guys some good content, let you know what's been going on with me, and help you guys get prepared for summer. So that's what this episode is all about, and I'll give you the overview of that soon. But before I do that, I'm gonna give you guys an update about what's been going on the last. It's been about a month and a half or so since my last episode. But the semester here at UNLV is almost done. Got like a couple more weeks left, and I've really been hitting the data collection for my dissertation pretty hard. I am over halfway done with that now officially. I'm also finishing up my sports science internship at UNLV in the next couple weeks, so I got a small project to do for that I'm going to be crunching some data for here soon. So it's going to be finishing up soon. Anatomy labs. So I'm still teaching those. Next week is the last week for teaching. So pretty excited about that. It's always a pretty busy semester when I'm teaching, and we got a lot of labs going on. So that's almost done there too, and still doing my personal training over at Camp Rhino Southeast in Las Vegas. So that's been a lot of fun. Subbing for a couple classes there too, coaching some CrossFit and boot camp classes, and yeah, that's pretty much been my life recently. So it'll actually be nice to get away a little bit this coming week and play some hockey with the guys. And I absolutely love doing those tournaments. They're a lot of fun. All right. So the next item on my agenda is next episode. There will be a couple very minor changes, I guess you could say, to the podcast. So the theme is still going to be the same. Still going to be giving you guys a lot of very, very similar content. So that's not changing too much, but a little bit of changing to the branding. So next time you see an episode, it might be a little bit different, but it's exciting changes coming. So, and I'll announce them on my social media channels, primarily on Instagram, whenever that happens, and you'll slowly start seeing some branding changes for that. So, my overview of today's show: I'm going to give you 6 highly effective strategies to lose body fat and keep it off. Most importantly, gain muscle and be the healthiest self for the rest of your life. So, this is a summer themed episode. So the strategies I give you are going to help get you fit and lean over the next couple months as the summer approaches, but also these strategies are going to be very, very useful for you the rest of your life. And they're principles that you can always fall back on to make sure that you're staying healthy and fit for a long, long time. All right, I just want to give you a reminder about my books. So I do have 2 published books. The most recent one is called Awareness Before Action, and that's a general health and fitness book that you can find on Amazon. And my second book that I published a couple years ago is a fitness book for hockey players. So if you are a hockey player 14 years old or older, or you know a hockey player, or even if you are in adult league, you can get a lot of value out of the book. That's also available on Amazon, and that one's called Skate, Lift, Recover. And they come in a variety of formats, so paperback, hardcover, and also Kindle. Still working on that audiobook for Awareness Before Action. Hope to have it done by the end of summer. I think that's reasonable. So summer will tone down a little bit with the all the work that I have going on. So should be able to get that done, I would say, probably by August. So that would be the goal. But anyway, if you guys have read the books, please, I need reviews. So please go on Amazon to the product page and at least leave me a 5-star rating. That would be awesome. And don't forget to follow and rate the show, the podcast as well, please, and share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. All right, so before I get into the episode, I want to make it known that this podcast is separate from my teaching, research, and sports science roles at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Now for today's podcast episode. Enjoy. All right, summer theme. Summer is right around the corner. So the first official day is June 21st. I'm recording this on Sunday, and in a couple days it will be April 21st, which means it will be exactly 8 weeks from the day you are hearing this when it is published to the first day of summer, which is exactly 8 weeks away. So that is plenty of time to make gains and get your body in better shape than it is today. So let's talk about these 6 things that you could do right now to start burning body fat, get leaner, and look great for the warm summer months ahead. And more importantly, not just for the summer months ahead, but well beyond the summer, all right, throughout the holidays, into next year, and for the rest of your life. So start getting into that mindset that fitness and health and wellness are not just temporary things. Okay, make them a part of your lifestyle. So these strategies that I'm going to be talking about are contained within each pillar of optimal health and performance. And these pillars are foundational to my podcast. You've heard them before. They are fitness, nutrition, stress management, and psychology. So let's talk about fitness first. So this first strategy I want you guys to focus on is to start lifting weights or do appropriate body weight exercises 2 to 3 days per week. There are a multitude of benefits from resistance training, whether it's just body weight or lifting weights. And a few of those are the improvement of intermuscular coordination. So that's pretty much what happens when you first start lifting weights. Right? You're not making super big gains as far as building muscle mass and that sort of stuff. In the beginning, it's a lot of your brain and muscle connection starting to become more efficient and fluid. So those muscles and the signals that are being sent to various muscles are starting to do so more efficiently and in a more coordinated fashion. So in the beginning, your movements might look a little bit choppy and shaky. And then over time, after a few weeks, a couple months, they start to look a lot smoother. All right, so we get that benefit. We also develop safe movement patterns for life. And we're going to be talking about those movement patterns here soon. And of course, with an increase in muscle mass, you also get an increase in metabolism, right? Because it is more expensive for the body to hold on to muscle. So more energy is required to maintain it. So let's talk about lifting weights. In general, you should focus on free weight exercises. Now, that's not saying that machines are bad. Machines definitely do have a place, but free weights like barbells, dumbbells, and kettlebells are really going to give you a lot of bang for your buck, and you're going to build a lot of lean mass and strength when you use that equipment. And like I said, you can also use the machines and cables. Cables are a great tool as well for resistance training, if that's what you are comfortable with at first. So when you're doing these exercises, you want to focus on specific movement patterns. So I like 7 movement patterns that I rotate throughout my week. And those are pressing, pulling, squatting, lunging, hinging, rotation and anti-rotation, and also carrying. So pressing, you can either press horizontally or vertically. So a horizontal press would be, for example, like a bench press, where you're laying down on your back on the bench and you're pressing dumbbells over your chest. Or a push-up if you are just doing body weight only. Now, a vertical press would be something like a dumbbell overhead press or a barbell overhead press. So you're pressing vertically rather than horizontally. So for pulling, you can also pull horizontally or vertically as well. So a horizontal pull would be something like a bent over row with a barbell, kettlebells, dumbbells, right? You can use any of those for a bent over row, or a seated cable row. For squatting, You could do just a standard body weight squat, or you can do a goblet squat where you hold onto a kettlebell or a dumbbell close to your chest and you squat down and up. For hinging, that is simply picking up something off of the ground. And it's what is called a hip dominant movement, where the muscles surrounding the hip, like your glutes, your butt muscles, your hamstrings on the back of your leg, those are the primary muscles in charge of doing the movement and the lifting when you are hinging. And that's different from a squat because squat primarily relies on your quadriceps or the muscles surrounding the knee. Obviously, hamstrings and glutes are still highly involved, but the focus is more on your quadriceps and the muscles on the front of your leg rather than the muscles on the back of your leg when you are hinging. So, a very popular hinging exercise is a Romanian deadlift. And you can do that with a dumbbell, a barbell, or a kettlebell once again, where you start with that weight at your hips and you push your butt back, your chest comes down, your back stays straight, and you go down as far as you can to feel like good stretch in your hamstrings and in your glutes, and then you stand back up with it. So, fantastic exercise to learn the hinge movement pattern. So, definitely look that one up. Next is rotation and anti-rotation. So, rotation doesn't get focused on as much as it should, in my experience. And you can either use a resistance band or a cable machine is very, very good for rotational exercises. So you could do exercises like chops, where you are the cable is anchored high and you're rotating down and away from the cable machine. Or you could just do a crossbody rotation where the cable is in line with your chest or lower rib cage, and you're simply rotating from right to left or the other direction, parallel to the ground. And anti rotation exercises are essentially just exercises that prevent you from rotating. So the focus is more on controlling rotation and core stability rather than actually rotating and doing the movement. So a very popular exercise for that one is called the Pallof press, and that's Pallof press. And you can do that with a resistance band or a cable machine. Very, very good exercise. And it's also very healthy for the back and the spine to be able to control that rotation, especially if you are an athlete or just moving around quickly. The better you could stabilize your core, the safer your back will be. And the last movement pattern was carrying. And carrying just gives you such a big bang for your buck. And it's not hard to learn at all. You simply just need to learn how to either squat down or hinge over and pick up the weight safely and then carry it. So it's easy to learn, it's low risk. And if you don't have a lot of space to carry, let's say kettlebells or dumbbells at your side, like doing a farmer carry, you can also hold them at your side and you could just march in place with high knees. And you can hold that march, that high knee, for a second or two before you bring it down to make it more challenging for the hips and the core. And you can also do something called a suitcase carry, where instead of you carrying two dumbbells or kettlebells, one in each arm, you're simply carrying just one of those weights to your side. And that forces your spine into something called lateral flexion, where you are basically leaning to one side and you are trying to resist that lean by staying nice and upright. So it really challenges your core, your obliques, and your spinal erectors to stabilize your spine and make sure that you don't tip over while you're walking with that weight. And then also the muscles on the outside of your hip. It is fantastic for those to keep them nice and strong. So keep those 7 movement patterns in mind, and those should definitely all be a staple in your resistance training routine. And you should rotate through them. Try to hit each one of those movement patterns 2 times a week to make sure that you develop and maintain adequate muscle mass and strength. So the next is set, speed or tempo, rep, load, and rest recommendations for those types of exercises. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple different recommendations. I'm going to give you one if you are a novice, and I'm going to give you one if you're an intermediate and you've been doing it for a little while. So, for sets, how many sets should you do per exercise? Well, if you're a novice, you will get a lot out of a little. Okay, so you're looking at 2 to 3 sets, right, to see a lot of really good strength gains and neuromuscular control, better firing between your brain and your muscles to stabilize and move a lot smoother throughout your exercises. So 2 to 3 sets. And if you're intermediate or even more advanced, all right, that's where you can kind of get into that 3 to 5 set range, especially if you're really looking to build a lot of muscle. So a little bit more volume will benefit you there. But if you're just starting out, it does not take much. Does not take much. 2 to 3 sets per exercise, and you are good. Okay, so speed and tempo matters a lot, especially if you're starting out and you've never done resistance training before, or it's been a long time and you're out of the game. Um, Slow down the movement and make sure you do it with control. Make sure you're doing it safely, and it'll really help you own the movement. And then after several weeks or a couple months of doing them, then you'll start to be able to speed them up a little bit more once you're more comfortable with them and you can move them actually safely, and you know what your range of motion is. You know how far down in the squat you can go safely. You kind of get a feel for if you have any movement limitations in your shoulder when you're pressing, things like that. So when you're starting off, I recommend for novice to do a 4-2-1-1 tempo. And I really like this tempo. It offers a lot of really great control. It's a safe tempo to do for all of these exercises, really, where you're moving dynamically. So what do these numbers mean? The first number is your lowering phase. Okay, so I'm going to use a squat as an example. So you start the squat in a fully upright position. So when you lower your butt down towards the ground, that's the lowering phase or eccentric portion. Muscles are being lengthened at that time. So you want to go very slowly on that downward portion for 4 seconds. So you want to count it out: 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. And then that next number is the length of time that you pause in the bottom of that movement. All right. So once you hit that bottom position of the squat, that 2 means that you're pausing for 2 seconds at the bottom of the squat. That means you're not just bouncing out of it. You're actually down there. You're owning that position. You're feeling what a good bottom position feels like. And you're making sure that, all right, you have a slight forward torso lean, but you're not hunching over. Everything feels good and stable, and you're not relaxing your muscles in that bottom position. You have complete ownership over that position. So that is what we want. And once we hit that 2 seconds at the bottom, that third number is a 1. That means you just come up like a normal speed. So it takes you 1 second to ascend from the bottom of that squat. And then that fourth number is your pause at the top. So you're just going to give a short 1 second pause at the top, and that'll complete the rep. And then you move on to the next rep. So once you've done a 4-2-1-1 tempo for a while, let's say a few weeks, all right, you're getting comfortable with it, maybe you want to then move to a 2-2-1-1 tempo. So the only thing that really changes is that lowering phase can be a little bit faster. So it only takes you 2 seconds rather than 4 seconds to go from the top to the bottom. Right. And if you're intermediate and you've been doing it for a while, then you're probably moving at a decent pace throughout your range of motion. So you could follow a 2-0-1-1 tempo. So if you want to go a little bit slower and get some more time under tension, it'll take you 2 seconds to go from the top to the bottom. No pause at the bottom, and then you come right back up. And one pause at the top before you move on to the next rep. Or you're just moving through the reps at a 1-0-1-1 tempo. So 1 second down, no pause at the bottom, 1 second up, and you give a quick pause at the top. So that's if you've been doing it a while and you're very comfortable with them. All right, so that's your tempo recommendations. Rep recommendations for novice, you're just getting started. If you're doing slow tempo, I would stick with a 6 to 10 rep range. Okay, so if you think about it, if you do that 4-2-1-1 tempo, so that would be 6, 7, 8 seconds per rep. And if you do 10 reps, that is 80 seconds or a minute and 20 seconds. That's a lot of time under tension and to be holding a weight, right? So that right there, 10 reps doesn't sound like a lot. However, it really adds up quick because you're under tension for a very, very long time, and you will get a tremendous value out of that too. So you don't need a lot if you're going slow. Okay, so 6 to 10 reps, depending on your tempo. If you're intermediate and you're going a little bit faster through the exercises, 8 to 15 reps is a great range to build a lot of lean muscle there. Okay, for load, how heavy should you go? So I like what's called using reps in reserve. Okay, so that is RIR as an abbreviation whenever I do my workout programming. So I use this for how your exercise should feel at the end of your set. Okay, you can also use something like ratings of perceived exertion. That's basically a scale of 0 to 10. 10 means it feels like a maximal effort, right? So I can talk about that another time, but reps in reserve is really useful. So how you would use this as a beginner or novice is I would stick with 2 to 3 reps in reserve at the end of your set. So what does that mean? Say you finish rep number 10, all right? You should be able to feel like you could do 2 or 3 more reps after that 10th rep, okay? So you shouldn't be at failure. You should be like just below failure, all right? Giving yourself a little bit of room, right, at the end. And if you're intermediate, you've been doing it for a while, then, all right, I would say 1 to 2 reps in reserve. You could go a lot closer to failure, or maybe you can even tolerate a failure set here or there, all right? But those should be very infrequent. And for rest time, I would stick between 90 and 120 seconds. So a minute and a half to 2 minutes between sets. And when you're transitioning from exercise to exercise, depending on time constraints, you could go 3 to 5 minutes. All right, give yourself a little bit of time to reset your body to recover a little bit and then move on to the next exercise. And that's if you're doing one exercise to completion and then you go to the next exercise, do that to completion, and you're not doing what's called a superset. A superset would mean, okay, you have 2 exercises and you're going back and forth. You do a set of one and a set of the other, and then you continue going back and forth like that until both exercises are done. So for this rest recommendation, 3 to 5 minutes, I'm just talking about moving after completion of one exercise to the next one. Okay, so that all right there was strategy number one. All right, make sure that you are lifting weights or doing bodyweight training 2 to 3 days per week, and you will build and maintain a great amount of lean muscle tissue and strength, and this will also help with body fat reduction. Okay, so the next one, to facilitate more body fat reduction, you can walk an extra 30 to 45 minutes, 3 to 5 days per week, or every day if you can. All right, this is very low risk, low intensity, low impact activity. All right, so walking is something you should be doing a lot every day. Aim for a minimum of 7,000 steps per day. Right, so this is something that is very, very difficult to overdo. Right, very difficult to overdo walking. Okay, so try to avoid jumping straight into a high volume, high intensity cardio routine. Okay, whenever you do this, going straight off the couch, right, there's always a higher risk for injury and burnout, and just not sticking with it long term. Right, walking is something you could stick with long term, and it's going to accelerate your caloric expenditure every day and enhance your ability to burn fat. And also, it is great for cardiovascular and respiratory health and so much more. So you can do a morning, midday, or evening walk and look for opportunities throughout your day to increase your activity levels. Okay, so start making it a little bit of habit. It doesn't have to be on your mind all the time, right? And it'll become more second nature once you kind of start to make it more of your lifestyle. You're not obsessing over it, but you're just kind of looking for opportunities to get a little bit more physical activity throughout your day. Okay, so a few different ways that this might look. So you could start taking the stairs any chance you get, right? So forget about the elevator or the escalator unless you're really pressed for time. You're always taking stairs. Take the stairs. You see them? Take them. All right, be different. Most people take the elevator or the escalator. Park further away, all right, whenever you're going shopping, all right, for whatever it might be, or do like a shopping day. Go walk around the mall. All right, that is a great way to get a lot of walking in. Also, if you use a parking garage at work, park near the top floor and take the stairs down and up instead of the elevator. That's also a nice way of doing it. If you're flying, skip the moving walkways. All right, just forget about them. And most people are on them anyway. You're going to be backed up on them. Just walk. Just walk on the normal path. All right, and lastly, you could also do a set of 50 to 100 jumping jacks. Sorry, I'm just throwing a number out there. Okay, it can be less. All right, if you're just getting started, maybe 25 to 50 or something like that, or 10 to 20 burpees, or pick a number. Right, just do something. If you have if you have a few free minutes at home. All right, so if you work from home, get up out of the desk. Right, jumping jacks are great low risk way to get your heart rate up, and actually, if you're feeling a little bit fatigued, that'll really wake you up. Just do some jumping jacks. All right, get your heart rate up a little bit, get a little bit more caloric expenditure out of that, and you'll be amped up and ready to go back to work when you're done with the set of that. Okay, so let's transition over to nutrition. Always a fun topic. So, the third strategy is to use the 80/20 and 1 for 3 guidelines. So, the 1 for 3 guideline was something I created, and I talk about it in my book, Awareness Before Action. So, I don't know. Maybe it was out there before. Who knows? I hate to say that I actually created anything, but it just popped into my head because I used it a lot in the past, and I still do. And it's been very, very helpful for me. But let's go ahead and talk about the 80/20 guideline first, and then I'll transition to the 1 for 3 because it helps you maintain that 80/20 guideline. So, 80/20 guideline, what does that mean? That means you're eating whole or minimally processed foods 80% of the time. Okay, so what are whole foods? Anything with one ingredient, which is the food itself. Okay, so just think of a candy bar. You're looking at the back of it, the nutrition facts and the ingredient list that are like a mile long, right? Those are typically ultra processed foods, and those have minimal nutritive value. Whole foods are, when you look at it, okay, it's just one thing. It's an apple, right? Obviously, it has a lot of chemical compounds in it, all right, natural chemicals from nature, okay, but when you're looking at it, there's no label. It's just the food itself, right? You have chicken, you have an apple, you have a banana, you have an avocado, all right? So just one thing. That's what I want you to think about is one ingredient. Okay, so some more examples: carbs, fruits, potatoes, and rice. And also, don't forget about low starch vegetables like dark leafy greens, cucumbers, carrots, and bell peppers. All right, all whole foods there. So, what are non whole foods in the carb category? This can be white bread, crackers, cookies, or hamburger or hot dog buns. Okay, those are all not whole foods. Those are ultra processed, hyper palatable foods, which means they're very, very easy to eat the way they're manufactured. Okay, so the next is proteins. What are whole foods for proteins? Meats like poultry, beef, fish, or beans, lentils, and tofu if you're vegetarian or vegan. Some non whole food options include protein or energy bars, hot dogs, pre made protein drinks with many ingredients. Okay, so keep those in mind as well, right, to really minimize the consumption of those products. Next is fats. So whole foods can be oils like olive, avocado, or coconut oil, nuts, seeds, and nut butters with no additives, and also some grass fed butter or ghee. So a couple examples of not whole foods are Jif peanut butter. All right, look on the back of that, has a lot of additives. Coated or flavored nuts. Okay, so I know nuts are a little bit difficult to eat sometimes. All right, but if you consume too many that are like candied or they have these flavorings on them, okay, if you consume a lot of those, that's a lot of extra calories, a lot of extra sugar, and that stuff can add up, right? So be mindful of that. Ice cream and candy bars as well. All right, those are not whole foods. Those are about as far from whole foods as you could get. Now, fluids. Don't forget about fluids. Okay, so I know they're not whole foods. Okay, but they are optimal for health. Okay, so here are a couple options. That water. Okay, obviously. All right, if you don't drink water, we don't live. So make sure you're hydrating enough, and electrolytes without added sugars, okay, or minimal added sugars. Try to keep it to less than 2 grams. Juices, only if they're freshly pressed, but keep in mind that the consumption of these, if fat loss is your goal, that should probably be a little bit minimal too, because those do contain a lot of sugars as well, right? However, they can be very healthy, so if you sprinkle those in on occasion, that would be a good idea. All right, just don't overdo them. And ultra processed beverages. So this is where a lot of people, they really derail their progress. Right, drinking their calories. It is far too easy to drink your calories, and it can slow your progress down big time. So if you were to just do one thing out of all these in the nutrition category, like minimizing or eliminating your calories from beverages is going to make a tremendous difference. All right. So I'm talking about like things like sodas, Slurpees and slushies, frappuccinos with syrup and other additives, fruit juices with added sugars, and many sports drinks with added sugars too. All right. So if you are drinking a lot of those currently, reevaluate that a little bit. All right. If you're drinking several of them, maybe just eliminate one as a start. Okay. And then slowly try to get more and more of them out of your diet. All right. So, this 80/20 guideline, how do you actually put it into practice? Here we go. Try logging your day on a sheet of paper or on your phone. Okay. So, you're going to log your day, everything you ate and drank. Okay. So, write down every meal, snack, and beverage you had that day. Every instance you ate or drank whole, minimally processed foods or beverages, give yourself a check mark. All right, that is a complete, good to go. But every instance you ate or drank ultra processed products, even if you had whole foods or drinks along with them, give yourself an X. Okay, that is a step backwards. Be honest with yourself. Now, divide the number of checks by the total number of meals, snacks, and beverages you had that day. All right, say it was 8. All right, and you had 6 checks. Do 6 divided by 8 and see what the percentage is. So 6 divided by 8 is 75%. So, I mean, you're doing pretty well there, but there's a little bit of room for improvement if you just improved maybe a snack or a meal out of that day. Okay, so be honest with yourself. All right, were you under 80%? All right, try to do better the next day. Were you above 80%? Great. All right, make note of that and try to maintain it. All right, if you were way, way down, say like 20% or something like that, all right, really try to dial it in for your next day or two and get yourself back on track. Don't beat yourself up over it. All right, don't shame yourself. Give yourself some grace, accept it, and move on to the next day and just try to do better. That's all you can do. All right, so the 1-for-3 guideline is going to help you stick to the 80/20 guideline. Okay, so what this means is every time you have an ultra processed product throughout the day, whether it's food or a drink, that's your 1. The following 3 instances of eating or drinking need to be whole or minimally processed foods or drinks. And you can go further than just 3. Right? It doesn't have to be 1 ultra processed and then 3 in a row whole foods and then you go back to 1. All right, that's fine, I guess, if that works for you. Okay, but try to extend that 3 out to 4, 5, 6. See how long you can reasonably go, with the whole foods, right, before you give yourself a ultra processed product or something like that. Okay, so if you stick to that and the 80/20 guideline, you are doing very, very well, and I promise you, you will see progress in your body composition. You will, especially if you're being physically active throughout the day and you're walking and you're lifting weights. Right, you're going to see some progress. Okay, so let's talk about an example of this 1-for-3 in action. Okay, So say you left the house late and you didn't prep a whole food breakfast. So you stopped at McDonald's and bought an Egg McMuffin and a hash brown with an orange juice. Okay, is what it is. All right, that's your one. For lunch, be aware of your one. Okay, so the next meal needs to be whole foods. So lunch, go somewhere like Chipotle, for example, where you can get a burrito bowl with lettuce, mixed veggies, meat, and avocado. All right, then you're back on track and you have whole foods again when you get home for dinner. Then you prep a quick whole food breakfast like a smoothie for the following day, and you're back on your 1 for 3. All right, so that's kind of what it looks like in practice. Okay, so that 1 for 3 guideline was strategy number 4. Okay, so let's move on to stress management and psychology pillars. So I got one strategy for each one of those pillars for you guys. Okay, stress management, biggest bang for your buck right here. Number 5, turn the screens off 1 hour prior to bedtime. This is going to make such a huge difference in everything, and it has lasting effects into the following day because more than likely you're going to be sleeping better. And if you sleep better, you are going to be more productive, more energetic, and you're going to more than likely make better decisions the following day than if you didn't get a good night of sleep. Okay, so here's what this looks like: no TV, no phone, no laptop, no iPad. Okay, all your screens. Okay, so I know I'm not adhering to that right now because I wanted to get you guys this podcast. Okay, but pick and choose the times, all right, when you can do those things. Okay, but if you're really struggling to sleep and you've been doing so for a long time, turn the screens off and just allow yourself some time to wind down. Okay, so you can read, you can talk to your significant other, you can play with your kids, you can have family or bonding time, you can take your dog for a walk, you can go to the park with a blanket, lie down, and just look at the sky for a bit, or do it in your backyard. All right, that is super, super relaxing. Just look up at the damn stars, like just look up and you'll see, you'll see planes up there, you'll see some shooting stars, you see a planet or something like that. All right, and it's incredibly relaxing and therapeutic. And you can also play an instrument. All right, so like guitar, that can be very relaxing before bed. You could stretch or foam roll, you could take a hot bath, you could do Epsom salt, something like that. And the hardest one, all right, I challenge you for this one: just sit or lay in silence and just let thoughts come and go. All right, try that one. All right, no background music, nothing. Okay, you're just sitting in there in pure silence. And I learned this one from Michael Easter's book, The Comfort Crisis. And I started doing this, and it takes about 15 to 20 minutes of sitting there for that discomfort to start subsiding and for you to just become just chill, and for things to just start feeling good. And you're like, oh man, this silence actually feels good. Like I've been stimulated all day by everything, every noise possible. And just right now, after sitting 15 minutes in silence, just feels so amazing. Um, it'll really help you practice mindfulness, allowing those thoughts to come and go, not allowing the thoughts to become you and rule you. You're just allowing them to come in, recognize them, and just be like, okay, thoughts, cool. That one came in. All right, that one's gone. All right, let's just keep on going. So, great way to practice mindfulness. And you can also drink a warm cup of loose leaf herbal tea. Find a tea shop around your area. I'm sure there's plenty of them out there. I found one out here in Vegas. It's called Sheffield's, and I got some loose leaf teas that are not like in bags already. I scoop the actual dried tea leaves out, and they can be a lot more beneficial than the ones that have been sitting for a while in those bags. So, all right. So that was strategy number 5, right? That was your stress management. Good one. Turn off those screens an hour before bed. And last one, my psychology pillar, which I love so, so much. Strategy number 6, catch yourself trying to rationalize making poor decisions and call yourself out. Practice self-discipline. Okay. Calling yourself out doesn't mean you're telling yourself you're a piece of shit, right? And you're being mean to yourself and you're getting down on yourself. That's called self-loathing. Okay. That is unhealthy. It is not the best way to go about doing things, right? Calling yourself out more so means being honest with yourself and being true to your values and what you committed to doing. So know the difference between those two, right? You could give yourself a little bit of tough love. The way you do it, is different from the way I do it, but you're not berating yourself. Okay. So just know that difference. Do not berate yourself. That can become a very destructive pattern over time. Okay. So just a little bit of tough love, but also giving yourself those moments of grace whenever you do make those poor decisions. But in that time of decision making, here's a couple things you could think about. All right. So a couple examples of how you might catch yourself rationalizing making a poor decision that's not in line with your values. Okay, so here's your first example. If it's been a couple days since you hit the gym and your friends are inviting you out for a drink, stop and think about the commitment you made to yourself in the first place. All right, so if it's that important to you, if it's part of your values and you wanted to make it a part of your identity of going to the gym every day or most days out of the week, then stop and remind yourself of that. So in that moment, you might be telling yourself something like, oh, I already missed 2 days. What's one more day, right? Your brain's trying to rationalize immediate satisfaction over long-term progress. But what one more really means is one more day of trying to reverse that momentum you had back into your favor. So the longer you let the momentum go, the harder it is to get back. Okay. So day 3 turns into day 4. Before you know it, day 4 turns into day 5. All right, it's been a week, then it's been 2 weeks, and then you tell yourself, oh, since it's been 2 weeks, it's hopeless. I may as well just quit. All right, so that's how it starts. So, like, nip it in the bud early and recognize when you're starting to drift off on that trend that you don't want to go to. And remind yourself of your identity and the person you are or you aspire to be. So, are you the kind of person who prioritizes a late night of drinking over your health and fitness? Or is it the other way around? And be honest with yourself. You have to go deep sometimes. You really do. All right, I'm not going to lie. Okay, but you got to be really, really honest with yourself. And this is another thing that's really, really difficult to do. All right, saying no is really, really hard, especially if you have a close circle of friends. Okay, if you see those friends a lot and they truly care about you, they will understand and they will support your decision. All right. They might poke fun at you a little bit. All right. But in the long run, all right, they're like, hey, good on you, man, or nice job. Keep it up. Something along those lines. But if they don't really care about you and they're trying to drag you down and not support your decisions, then if what you're trying to do is really that important to you for your health and your fitness and your lifestyle, maybe you need to reevaluate your social circle. Right? It's a difficult thing to ask yourself to do. And it's a difficult thing to even think about, right? Especially if you've been with these people for a long, long time. But you do have to look after number one, right? And that's you. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So another example is mindless eating. So say you're at work and you just got notified of a tight deadline and you feel the need to go to the vending machine for a snack. You might be telling yourself, okay, I need a mental break. That was a lot to handle. I need to get up and get some food. So, in that moment, learn to slow down and recognize emotions in the moments before you make a decision. So, what are you feeling? Are you truly hungry? Or are you looking for a way to cope with the feeling of anxiety and worry about your new deadline? So, eating an ultra processed food is a transient solution to the problem, which is the uncomfortable feeling of worry and its associated effects on the body. For example, an elevated heart rate and muscle tension, which are uncomfortable and we're trying to ease them. So, food is one way to try to ease that stress and those effects associated with that worry. So instead, solve the problem by taking 5 to 10 breaths with long exhales. Okay, so try to make your exhale double that of the inhale. Long exhales. It will slow down your heart rate and that'll result in a relaxation response. Or get up and go for a 10-minute walk to settle yourself. Then you're going to return to your office, deepen your focus on your work, and trust yourself to get the job done. So, cultivating self awareness is one of the most powerful tools in your toolbox of optimal health. Learn to recognize what you're feeling in the difficult decision making moments and respond in a way that is consistent with your values. All right. And to wrap it up, if you want to get in shape for the summer and beyond, start to incorporate and be consistent with the 6 strategies you learned in this episode and get them into your routine and watch what happens after a couple months of sticking with them. All right, Wolfpack, that is it for the night. I am going to go get some sleep. Hope you guys do too. As a reminder, please follow and rate the show, introduce it to your friends, family, and colleagues. Leave comments and suggestions for other topics you want to learn about, please. And find me on social media. My Instagram is at coach_a_wolf, and my YouTube is at Wolfpack Fitness. And don't forget to get a copy of my books on Amazon. They are Awareness Before Action and Skate, Lift, Recover. All right, thanks for listening, guys. Tune in for the next episode and take care.